destructive behaviors to numb the pain of fatherlessness. Studies on child well-being show that father love is an important factor in predicting the social, emotional, and cognitive development and functioning of children and young adults. Boys with involved, loving fathers are significantly more likely to do well in school, have healthy self-esteem, exhibit empathy, and pro-social behavior. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Life After Abuse Foundation Voice to Better Men webinar. My name is Halima Layeni, and I am your moderator. Project Voice to Better Men is an initiative of the Life After Abuse Foundation. It was established with the vision to provide education, mentorship, and counseling for fathers and boys with uninvolved and abusive fathers. Today, we will be joined by three renowned speakers: Mr. Taiwo Akinlami, Africa's foremost thinker and practitioner on securing a protective environment for children and families; Bunmi Odekunle, our hero for today, a tech guru and a survivor of parental, physical, and emotional abuse; and Ahmed Adetola-Kazeem, founder and executive director, Prisoners' Rights Initiative, an NGO striving to make Nigeria's correctional center reformatory. We welcome you all once again. We hope that this event will turn out to be a learning and unlearning experience for us all. Please feel free to drop your comments, suggestions, and questions as we proceed. The event is in two sections: the presentation segment and the Q&A. I would encourage you all to stick around to the end, as both segments are equally important. Our first speaker is Mr. Taiwo Akinlami. I'm just going to read his profile and then we get to it. Taiwo Akinlami is the co-founder and CEO of Power Parenting Company, LLC. He's a child's rights and family strengthening expert and advocate. His mandate of securing a friendly and protective environment for the African child received a global attention in 2017 when his project was showcased at the Europe, Middle East, and African Child Safety Summit, a program organized by Facebook and Google. He made an outstanding and well-accepted address showing that in matters relating to securing a friendly and protective environment, enlightenment is superior to enforcement. Akinlami, Africa's leading social development lawyer, is the principal partner of Gilgal Partner, a social development law firm. Akinlami is a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants, a certified management consultant conferred by the International Council of Management Consultant Institute, ICMCI, and he currently consults for the UNICEF, USAID, UNFPA, the British Council, and SOS Children's Village on policy formation, curriculum development, and training. Mr. Taiwo Akinlami would be presenting today on the importance of the father in child development, the causal effect of father absence, and he will be breaking the silence on sexual abuse in boys, its existence, signs, effects, and treatment. Finally, he'll be speaking on the effects of masturbation and pornography. Please, can we welcome Mr. Taiwo Akinlami? Just going to see if he's here. Mr. Taiwo Akinlami, please, could you raise your hand if you are here? Bola Daniel, could you confirm if Mr. Taiwo Akinlami is here with us?
It's not online presently.
Okay. Could you put a call through to him right away? Thank you, everybody, for joining in. I can see one of our speakers, Bunmi Odekunle. Thank you, Bunmi, for joining in today. Bola, please let me know when Mr. Taiwo Akinlami comes up, please. So pending the time that we wait for Mr. Taiwo Akinlami, I would just like to run us through a couple of important information. Bola, let me know when it comes up, please. Opening the file. Yeah. Okay, pending the time that we wait for Mr. Taiwo Akinlami, Bola, I would like to ask that you kindly leave your mic unmuted so that you can notify me as soon as it comes on board. I'm going to ask you to unmute now. Yeah, so pending the time that we'll bring up our first speaker. So we have been doing an extensive research on, the role of fathers in his son's life. This project was actually birthed from one of the initiatives that we launched as a foundation. In 2019, we launched the Men Can End Violence initiative. It was geared towards engaging men in protection and equal rights for all women and girls. And in the course of our work, we got to realize that men generally are victims of socialization. I'm sure that we're all very knowledgeable about a lot of factors that contribute towards the way men are socialized, basically. And we got to realize that, beyond education, we got to realize that a lot of men grew up with trauma, a lot of unresolved trauma. We did a deeper research and we got to realize that there's this gap between fathers and sons. In a lot of homes, fathers just play the role of, I'm just going to pay your school fees and, no love or care. I'm sure that, a lot of men can relate to pretty much all these things. So father just play the key role of providing for the home. They really do not, some fathers basically, they really do not get involved in other key things like, showing a child love and care. I know that in this climate, like we don't do all the kissing, kissing a child goodnight and all of that. But during my research, I got to realize that these are very important factors, in grooming a child. It is very important for fathers, especially to, show the vulnerable sides of themselves, to show their children, sons especially, teach them empathy, teach them compassion, teach them to be soft, teach them to be, kind, teach them boundaries, self-control. Come to realize that most of these things are literally not taught to a lot of boys, and so most of them grow up with this stone heart, and they always grow up with the mentality that I'm supposed to be strong, I'm supposed to be wired in this way. Even sometimes when we're growing up, our parents buy, they buy pink for the child and they buy blue for the boys. And then when we go to the toy shop, we see that the boy gets the Iron Man, he gets the Spider-Man, he gets the, what other superheroes do we have? He gets like the Captain America school bags, that's what's in their mad sets. That's pretty much what they're surrounded by. And this actually affects boys in the way that they think, in the way that they're socialized, the clothes that we buy for them, the fact that we tell them that, pink is for girls, guys are not supposed to get involved in this, boys are not supposed to get involved in this. It really affects them. So growing up, they are conditioned to be strong, to, to aspire to be like Spider-Man. Boys do not aspire to be like princesses or Cinderella, which actually affects them mentally. And we hope that this program is able to change that condition, it change that mentality of a lot of parents. And I mean, I'm happy that we have new generation parents here, like we're like the next generation coming up, and we're able to raise our children in a totally different way, in the way that we raise our children, that we do not just condition girls that girls are supposed to be soft, girls are supposed to be, pink is for girls. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with buying your son a pink toy. You should, he makes it in touch with his emotions. When you buy him pink things, you are sending a message that he can't be soft, it can't be compassionate, it can't be vulnerable, it can be like, there's just this, or there's also this socialization that boys cannot be like, boys cannot just, you shouldn't be like girls are weak, girls are this, these are toxic conditionings that we teach our boys that we really need to start unlearning. So during our initiatives, we're able to reach out to about 6,000 boys, and in our relation with these boys and men, we've come to realize that a lot of men carry around unresolved trauma, especially from childhood. There's this void. A lot of men do not grow up with the father love, so there's this void in their heart that there are a lot of boys and men who did not get a chance to talk to their parents about porn, about masturbation, about their genitals. I mean, the first people who introduced them to these sensitive topics were their friends or the internet, and they did not really get a chance to speak. I mean, these are the things that a boy really wants to talk to his father about. And we just like to encourage every father here and father to be here to have these conversations with your son. Your role in the home is not just to pay school fees. Your role in the home is to have that one-on-one interaction with your child, especially your son, and pretty much all of that. So I'm just going to read a research by the United States Center for Disease Control. Now, it reported that in 1988, 85% of all children who show behavior disorder come from fatherless homes. According to the 1978 Criminal Justice and Behavior Journal, 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes. Now we can see the trend. A report from National Principals Association states that 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. Now, evidently, a significant proportion of boys who grew up with uninvolved fathers struggle with feelings of abandonment, low self-esteem due to lack of father's love in their lives. Many have turned to drugs, alcohol, risky sexual activities, unhealthy relationships, and destructive behaviors to numb the pain of fatherlessness. You would realize that by the time you go to the male prison and the female prison, we have more male prisoners. Now, these are the foundational issues. These are the foundational problems. These things set the foundation for the high crime rates that we have, the high rape cases that we have, sexual abuse. These are the things that actually causes most of those things. Now, in the last decades, the social sciences have begun recognizing and examining the crucial role that fathers play in child development and family dynamics. Nevertheless, relatively little attention has been paid to the role fathers play in the dynamics of child maltreatment. Now, what's the goal? What's the goal of Project Boys to Betterment? Bola Daniels, please let me know when Mr. Akinlami comes up. Now, the role of the goal of Project Boys to Betterment is pretty much to contribute towards promoting healthy masculinity, building mentally healthy citizens among males, which in turn will promote a safe and socially healthy society for all. Imagine a world where we have mentally healthy men, a world where men are allowed to express their emotions, men are allowed to be vulnerable without being shamed. I mean, we still hear a lot of people judge men when they come out to say that they were, they suffered domestic abuse, or they suffered male child sexual, or they were sexually abused as a child. You hear people say things like, you should have enjoyed it. You're supposed to enjoy it. And these are the things that actually stops men from speaking out about certain things that affect them mentally. when you see a boy crying or a man crying on the internet, you hear people bashing him and saying that you're a man, you're supposed to be a man, you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to, I mean, crying is weakness. I mean, these seemingly harmless comments that we make is causing a lot of damage to men unknowing to us. So this is just a current call to everybody to try to, show men more compassion and basically be more accepting of their struggles and pretty much all of that. Yeah, so I don't know if Mr. Akinlami is on yet. I'm just going to check. Okay, so in the Bola Daniels, is Mr. Akinlami here yet? Looking for Bola. Bola Daniels, please unmute. Is Mr. Akinlami here yet? Okay. I'm just going to go through the list to be sure that. Okay, so since we have one of our speakers, I think we're just going to go ahead so that we don't delay everybody. Bunmi or Odekunle, I just hope that you're mentally ready for this. Please unmute. We'll be taking you first since Mr. Akinlami is not here yet. I'm just, sorry, Bunmi, I need to read your profile first. Bunmi, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read Bunmi's profile in the absence of Mr. Taiwo Akinlami. Thank you so much for joining us, Bunmi. Bunmi is like our hero for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Bunmi Odekunle is a survivor of parental, physical, and emotional abuse. He was born as a premature in a small village in Oyo State. He failed and repeated classes and lost relationships with friends and family as a result of his experience. Today, Bunmi Odekunle is a strategy and tech innovator with more than 8 years of collective experience in technology, innovation, strategy, consulting, financial markets, and social entrepreneurship. He is a Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs scholar and a One Young World Ambassador. Bunmi is a fellow with the Social Innovation Warehouse. He's currently an Africa Commit fellow with SAP. Bunmi is the founder of LendCash, a digital lending marketplace and investment platform. He is also the chief strategist and operations with IBF Markets, a forex brokerage firm registered in the UK and in Nigeria. He holds a degree in accounting, information technology, and a master's in business administration. He's an alumnus of the prestigious Lagos Business School. Please, can we welcome Bunmi Odekunle? Welcome, Bunmi. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here this afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. So Bunmi, you're here to share your story, your experience with your father. Could you please tell us about your background first, and then we'll get to it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Like you shared during my profile, I was born in a small village in Oyo State, the Okiogun side, as a premature. Well, I was born when my dad was actually in secondary school. So, the effects of having a baby or having being pregnant in secondary school. So I think it was tough for my mom. So because of the stress and also, I was giving birth prematurely. And unfortunately, there were no incubator in my village then. I was born in 88. So there was no incubator. So they actually put me under the sun in the afternoon. And at night, they lit up the whole room just to get the room very hot. And sincerely speaking, till this moment, I still have some side effects of those things because it's not medically all right to actually use those kind of alternative instead of an incubator. But we thank God we are here today. And so I grew up with my dad. My dad actually raised me, I think from the age of 3. We came to Lagos together, and he was an academician. He loves education, and he owns a school. So everything about my academics was actually super bright from when I was living with my dad, because he ensured he actually gave me all the best, so as to avoid side talks from family and all sorts. So he actually did his best. So because of the father-son relationship we had while growing up, it tends to actually, let me use the word overlove. When you are obsessed with someone, I think it's beyond love. So at a point, he couldn't actually live alone. He had to remarry. So I think I was about 8 years old when he remarried, and apparently that was the time he was also going to the seminary to become a pastor. I was already in JS1 by that time. I was in JS1. I was 1998. 97, 98. So I was in JS1. And that was when things started changing, because it felt everything was all right. But deep down, everything wasn't that all right. And I was so very young. I was so naive. I'm kind of gentle. So it's not someone I see very often. It comes home late at night. He leaves very early in the morning, go to school. So I was just with my stepmom, and things started changing. My academic performance started changing, but my JS1, I think I repeated my JS1, because when I came home with, before my JS1, actually, I was an A student, actually. And, when you're an A student and you're an A student, in fact, in my community, people say it to my hearing that be like Omo teacher. They call me Omo teacher, Omo teacher, Omo teacher. Be like Omo teacher. But at the point I got into university, I met friends, and considering what I was actually experiencing at home. So I met a lot of friends, and they were like giving me tips, advice, do this, do that. And it started affecting me academically, and nobody knew. So people thought I was just a bad boy for nothing. That actually lived with me for a very long time, till I got to my mid-20s, and people started saying it to my hearing. When people tells you, don't work with that guy, is a very bad boy. In fact, my ex-mom came to my dad and told my dad, warn your son, I don't want to see your son with my daughter again. So it was so bad. But at age 8, the pressure was much. I need to run away from home for I think 2 weeks.
Why did you run away?
Yeah, because I couldn't. I was young. There's nobody to actually talk to. There's nobody to listen to me. Everything I do was like, I don't know how to do it, and the pressure was so much to the point that even if when I speak up, people don't listen. They were just like, no, you have everything, you do this, you do that, your dad is a teacher. But there are times that I go to school without even eating. There are times that I'm always at home with nothing, but there's nobody that will believe that, oh, Bunmi has not eaten since morning. Fine, it might be like, there are different ways you can actually punish a child. When a child misbehaves, there are different ways. And now I try to tell young parents that no matter what a child does, never use food to punish a child. It actually leads to other things that even a parent might not be able to control. Until date, I have a very, very poor eating habit, as in very, very poor. If I eat pasta in the morning, I might not eat anything till tomorrow, because at a point I developed that thin skin That even because I know that when I do anything bad, the worst you are going to do is you beat me and tell me there's no food.
So speaking of beating, Olubumi, so speaking of beating, at what point did the physical and the psychological abuse start? And what was your relationship with your father like?
Yeah, like I said earlier, while I was growing up, we had a very good relationship actually, because we stayed together in Lagos. So he was the one that actually brought me up. But by the time he remarried, he actually transferred all the responsibility to the wife. You understand? He transferred all the responsibility to the wife, and knowing fully well that my dad loves me, and he actually showed it that my dad loves me, and it was as if I'm the first wife in the house. That's the one. Two is that it transferred all the responsibility. Okay, anything you want, just go and meet this person. So there are times I need that fatherly role. There are times I need that discussion with my dad. There are things I want to say. There are things I want to ask that my mom can't actually give me those answers. You understand? Yes, there's a place of the mother, there's a place of the father, but there are things that you need from your dad that you can't get it anywhere. You just have to sit down with him and have like a discussion. You get? So at that point, things started actually, I felt some things missing in my life. Because before then, when we were together, we discuss, we sit down, I come back from school, I bring my notes, we sit down together, we study, we listen to the news, we take a walk, and all sorts. So imagine someone coming from that background, you get, and it's not that the father is late, but at some point you are not getting those attentions, you're not getting those things again. So I felt unloved.
That must have been really difficult for you.
Yeah, I felt unloved. Okay.
At what point did the physical and the psychological abuse start?
All right. So at the point that the physical and the psychological abuse started was after feeling unloved, I tend to actually voice out, but it wasn't yielding any positive response. So because of the friends I have actually mixed with in school, so they tend to give me some tips and advice, which were actually bad, to be frank, which were actually bad. You understand? So at that point, I was used to correction in a very lovely manner. Like when I do something wrong, my dad calls me, we talk about it, and that's all. And I got another form of correction whereby before you even explain, as in they beat the hell out of your life. And even after that, you have some things you want to do, and you are not even able to express yourself within the home. And they tell you there is no food for you, there is no this for you. They deny you of the basic thing a child should have. You understand? Sometimes my dad could actually travel and I'm just left alone with my mom, and she would just tell me, nothing for you. Even when you're going to school, you trek from home to school and you trek back, which as an average child, I wasn't used to that kind of life. So all those things actually started affecting me mentally, psychologically, to the point that I started having like a drop in my academical life.
Okay, I'm so sorry to hear that. I know that must have been so devastating for you. Are you comfortable to share the nature of the kind of physical abuse that you suffered? How we just want to have an idea of what kind of physical abuse it was.
All right. One of the reasons that actually made me run away from home the second time. I think the second time I was 15. I ran out of home for like was it? I think 2 or 3 months. You understand? Before then, I was trying to, a lot of people started calling me and talking to me that, oh, Bunmi, try to do this, calm down, be good, and I tried to be calm, be good, but even to the slightest mistake whereby probably you are doing the dishes and mistakenly you break a glass cup. I could remember vividly there was a time I broke a glass cup and they used the glass cup like I have a tribal mark here, if you can see, yeah. And they used the glass cup like she's going to give me another tribal mark here. But I think the thing has cleared up now. Before now, it's actually visible. You know how painful it is to like trying to struggle that, okay, don't mark me with this cup and also with series of beating, not beating with actually cane, might be anything, IU, broom, a lot of things. And, you know, at some point, I feel like a slave in my own home. So I was just like, I think I need to find my way. Let me just find my way. Let me go out and look for other means to survive instead of actually living here and not being loved, treated like a slave. There are times that even if I don't finish, probably I'm served of food. If I don't finish that food and I keep it inside the fridge, if I don't eat that food the next day, if that's the same food I will eat, as in I must finish that food, even if that it takes 7 days inside that fridge. And how do we expect a child to eat a food that is already sour?
It's really so sad to hear, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. I understand that you are now in a better space now, and thankfully you're married. Now, how has this experience influenced your marital life and your choice to want to have a child or not? How has that experience, influenced your life?
Well, it's to be sincere, negatively, it's actually impacted me a lot of ways negatively because I find it difficult to actually show love to people because I'm very, very hard-headed. And if you offend me, I always find a way to actually retaliate, as in I just want to hurt you back. And even if I offend someone, I find it difficult to just open my mouth and say sorry because I didn't grow up with parents or people apologizing when they are wrong. And I'm still going to tell you, why should I tell you sorry? But one thing it actually helped me to do positively was the fact that it helped me to be independent. I learned to do things independently on my own through trials, and though there are things that I did on my own that actually cost me almost my life or a lot of money, losses and also, but it actually helped me to actually be independent. So when I was about to to get married, I think that was then it dawned on my dad that a lot of things actually were done because he was even surprised. I told him I wanted to get married like 4 months to my wedding. Like, I think I want to get married. And for me, I'm a kind of person that I don't hide things from people I'm very, very close with. So if I say, okay, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with, the person needs to know every damn thing about my life. So she already know everything, every of my story. So there's nothing somebody wants to tell her outside that will be new to her. So what I experienced actually affected me in some way that I find it difficult that to tell my spouse sorry, to apologize to my spouse. Sometimes I find it difficult to actually come home and buy gifts because gifts, I don't do gifts. You understand? But it took me a while to unlearn those things. It took me a very long while to actually unlearn those things. And got so good. We actually dated for like almost 10 years. So during those years, I actually unlearned a lot of things, and she was so helpful that she helped me like unlearn a lot. Till today, I'm still actually scared of parenting because I don't want to see myself raising my kids to be fearful, to be scared, to have low self-esteem, because all these things actually affect the self-esteem of a child. Because at the point I couldn't even go outside and talk. In fact, I started feeling dumb myself because of the words, the things I've had, like you are a fool, you cannot even, as in you cannot, at the point I was even, as in I was written off that I can never make it. It was at the point that my dad called me, he called a family meeting with myself, my younger ones. There's this appraisal we do like every end of the year. So he was appraising everybody. And he got to me, I was like, I give you 24 hours to tell the whole family if you are still a member of this family or not. I sense he might not understand the power of that statement, but I took it very, very strong, and I just made a vow, dear and dear, that no matter what it takes, with or without any family support, I'm going to actually make sure I come out good. And thank God, today it's a very, very different story, because 2019, yes, no, yeah, 2019, when he celebrated his 50th birthday, and he wasn't expecting it. I just told my wife that what kind of gifts can we get for my dad, and he said, let's get him a car, and we bought him a Jeep. That was the first day he cried in front of me. He might have been crying in his closet, but that was the first day I saw my dad cried. Wow. You understand? And after those moments, he has called me, he apologized. You know, he's trying to create this relationship back to make sure that, yes, everything is back. You know, he took me to places, he took me to some of his uncompleted buildings. So I have this, I have that. Before now, there was a point my dad bought a car years back, as in he has bought a car like 2 years back. Before I knew he actually has a car. So my friends that were telling me that, I said, your dad driving a car, like my dad doesn't have a car. To tell you how worse it, sometimes he will threaten me, I won't pay your school fees. And he has paid the school fees, and he will hold the receipt, and they will be threatening me in school, sending me out of the class in school. So it's kind of a bittersweet right now, because sometimes I look back and I like, how I wish this relationship has been there right from time. But I thank God that things are beginning to take shape now, and the fear of that parenting is actually getting up, because I think it was January. I'm married for 4 years now. It was January. He called me like, what's up now? What's delaying you guys? I say, I don't understand. The children, I am not ready. I want to be emotionally stable. I want to be physically stable. I want to be a responsible dad that will have time for my kids. And I've been always praying for a female children. So if I'm having a female children, then I need more physical attention to take care of them, because I understand what females actually go through in this present situation.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Bunmi. It was amazing listening to your story, and I'm glad that you're now in a better space, and you are able to give your children the gifts that your father did not give you. And I'm also happy that you and your father have been able to make up and mend whatever issues that you guys had. And I'm sure that you will be able to raise your child or your children in a better way. Thank you so much, Bunmi. Please kindly hang around for the Q&A. We have a couple of questions for you. Bola Daniels, please note the questions and send them to my WhatsApp. Thank you so much. We're going to bring up the next speaker now. Mr. Taiwo Akinlami has joined us, where he has asked that we make him the third speaker. So we're just going to welcome, sir. It's such a pleasure to have you here. So we're going to bring Ahmed Adetola-Kazeem on board now. I'm just going to read his profile right now. Thank you so much, Ahmed, for joining in. Okay, just a second, please. Okay, so Ahmed Sorry, I'm having a little issue with my laptop, so I had to like come back to my phone. Yeah. So Ahmed Adetola-Kazeem is the managing partner at Adetola-Kazeem Legal Practice. Yay, he just came on board. Let me just try to spotlight his yeah. Hello, Ahmed. Thank you so much for joining in. Can you hear me? Okay, let me try to unmute you. Sorry, just a second, please. Yeah. Welcome,
Hello,
Ahmed.
thank you very much. Thank you for having
Thank you
me.
so much for joining in. So I'm just going to read your profile real quick and then we'll get to it. Ahmed Adetola-Kazeem is the managing partner at Adetola-Kazeem Legal Practice with expertise in medical and health law, labor law, arbitration, human rights, and general litigation. He is the executive director of Prisoners' Rights Advocacy Initiative, PRAI, an NGO striving to make Nigeria's correctional center truly reformatory. He's a member of Board of Trustees of Lagos Public Interest Law Partnership and the chairman Board of Trustees of Network of Pro Bono Lawyers. He's a member of Board of the United States Exchange Alumni Association. He founded Q Madi Taekwondo Club, a multiple award-winning club nurturing street children into world-class champions. 3 members of the club represented Nigeria at the African Games 2019 in Morocco. The club has also produced a Commonwealth gold medalist and many national champions at all levels. It's currently conceptualized AAK Human Capital Development Center to inspire the next generation of leaders across different human endeavors. He is a 2017 Mandela Washington Fellow and Presidential Princess Fellow. He won the 40 Under 40 Legal Rising Star Award in 2019 and was a finalist at the International Bar Association Pro Bono Award 2013 in Boston, USA, among several numerous awards and recognition. Please help me welcome Ahmed Adetola-Kazeem. Welcome, Ahmed. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ahmed will be talking to us about navigating through trauma and neglect in boys, breaking free from bullying, key moral values to teach boys, boundaries and self-control, and of course, anger management. Ahmed, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And I hope that by the end of this program, we would have all gained a lot for the benefit of the boys. So I hope that there are also many boys listening. I would like to know how many young boys are on this call, whether through their parents' laptop or something. So thank you very much. It's a lot you have told me to discuss. I'm not promising that I'll be able to touch on everything in 20 minutes, but I'm going to pick some. So it's not the volume that matters, but the little that we can put to use. So I'm not promising I'm going to touch on everything. And I just got notice of discussing all these things in about 3 days, 3 days ago. So I'm not a magician. So yes. So navigating through trauma and neglect. So let me just make that the broad topic while trying to pick some of the other subtopics as we go along. So the first topic or the first subtopic is breaking free from bullying. So I'm going to narrate a story, and that story is the story of one of the greatest men of the last century, and that is Muhammad Ali. We all know Muhammad Ali. Different people know him for different things, but we all know him for boxing. Beyond boxing, he's also a world-class humanitarian. And I recall during his memorial, a lot of people from every strata, every social strata, all religions were there to speak glowing tributes about him. But there was a particular aspect of his life that changed the course of his life. He got into boxing because his bike was stolen. He was looking for a policeman. So somebody directed him to a gym run by a policeman, and he was crying and saying that I was going to beat the person who stole his bike. So the policeman who ran that gym, it was a boxing gym, advised him to take up boxing so that he doesn't disappoint himself when he eventually gets to see the person. So he started boxing. But when he started boxing and he started winning laurels, there were two obstacles he needed to face for him to conquer the world. So the first obstacle was to beat a guy named Cocky. So the guy was a bully. So I was the king of the streets in Louisville, Kentucky then. So Ali's aim was beat the guy because at every point in time they met, the guy beat Muhammad Ali up, despite the fact that he was already winning national champions as a junior and the likes. So on a particular day, Ali decided to confront him and tell him to come up for a boxing match in a regulated arena, because if they were to fight, they were to do a street fight, the guy was going to beat him. So he said, okay, why not let us go to a ring where we have all the audience and everything at a special boxing tournament within the area. So eventually, they got into the ring and Ali beat him blue-black. He had a black spot on his eye and he had blood gushing from his mouth. In the second round of the match, the guy gave up. And there and then, Ali became the king of the street. He didn't only liberate himself, but he liberated every other person in that particular area. Then eventually, he thought the guy was going to come back to him on the street, but the guy never showed up. So when the guy saw him, the guy said, yes, you're a good fighter, and they're going to go places. So the guy followed up at every point in time, on Ali's. So at a particular point, Ali fought somebody who broke his jaw. So Ali was looking forward to hearing from the guy, hearing, what the guy had to say, hearing the guy's comment, but the guy never showed up. So Ali asked somebody close that, what of Cocky? Then he was informed that Cocky has been killed in a brawl with the police. It was shot up with the police, so he eventually died. So this would point at two things. This is just to create a scenario, particularly for the young boys here, or for the parents of young boys who happen to be bullies. So there are two things a bully would do. A bully can actually turn the life of the person being bullied if it is properly managed. So Ali was able to conquer one of his greatest fears. The second fear was flying on a plane, but that is not a story for today. The two fears Ali ever had in life was Cocky, then flying on a plane. So he was able to conquer the world just by conquering. He believed if he beat Cocky, the only thing standing between him and conquering the world was Cocky. And once he beat Cocky, he gained that confidence. This was a story gotten from Ali's personal biography, autobiography. So you saw, this was the way Ali was able to manage it. But on the other side, for boys who are bullies, you saw how Cocky ended. Despite the fact that Ali was able to conquer him and put him out of the streets of Kentucky, but he moved to another place and continued this life. So there's a need for parents to pay attention to their children. So, and one of the ways of correcting this, unfortunately, there are people who call bully victims. Those are people who have been bullied and eventually become bullies. So it's a circle. Sometimes people who are abused later become people who abuse others. So what are the things that we need to do as parents, as caregivers, or as those who are actually victims of this, who are bully victims themselves? So one is we need to work on the attitude. So a lot of people who bully or who get bullied a lot, so many of them lack self-esteem. So they are attracted. I recall that when I was in school, of course, we have people who are bullies. When I went to a boarding house, and it was a very tough problem. But you find out that those who are mostly victims, the major victims of bullying are people who lack. I have friends who lack self-esteem, who lack confidence, and they were subject to being bullied. So one thing that we need to do to ensure that our children navigate this particular, this particular problem is what? Building their esteem. So second is we need to impart social skills in them, how to relate to people and problem-solving skills. We also need to help them make friends. One of the key issues in Ali's management of Cocky was actually his friend. He had a friend who was Ronnie and another friend who encouraged him. When Ali was going to fight, his dad was also present. So everybody, there was this group of people supporting him. So many times people will navigate bullying when they have people around them. So you need to ensure that your children have good friends who would also look out for them, who can also stand for them. Sometimes somebody might be weak, but he has a friend who can talk, and who can also prompt when things are going wrong. So we need to ensure this. Also, they also need to manage their emotions. So when people bully, it's an issue of emotions. You understand? They spiral out of control. Things they need to keep quiet on, they'll keep at it. So you need to be able to manage their emotions, to be able to gauge when to react and when to keep quiet. And also, they also need to manage you need to impart empathy. So most bullies are people who lack empathy. They don't care. They would, and bullying is just physical. Sometimes it could be abusive. Probably somebody is fat, and you find somebody trying to, maybe when they're engaged in a sport or something, they keep speaking to them, they keep abusing them, and the other person would just have to withdraw into their cocoon. So I think so. Another thing that we need to do in our children generally, whether they are victims of bullying or bullies or none of this, is to encourage them to encourage them to have empathy. To know that what the other person is facing, they could equally face it if they're in the same shoes. You understand? And the life is a circle. So these are some of the things that we need to do. And also, you also need to focus on outside help. There are times that some of these things are not things that we just discuss, but you need to get them counselors, you need to get them. And sometimes this help might also mean that you need to register them in a martial arts club, for instance, or a boxing club. Sometimes those who are victims of bullying need to actually stand up to their bullies, just like the way Ali did. So you need to prime them, and it is not. You must also make them know that it's not an immediate thing. It could be a 2-year task. It could be a 3-year task. So we should also try to ensure that our children are physically fit. This, to a large extent, will prevent them from being bullied. So I think I'll stop here. I just have 20 minutes. So I'll stop here on the issue of bullying. I hope I've made a point. Then the second one is the issue of anger management. And I think this also dovetails into the first point. So it's about managing emotions, managing our reactions, and all whatnot. Anger is one of the greatest destroyers of people. Today you have people who are great, and what people have worked for years, for 80 years, they can destroy just with one encounter when angry. So you know that anger is something that we need to actually manage. And a lot of homes are broken today just because people could not manage their emotions. The father became angry and he said this, and he said, I cannot go back on my words, and like that. So you find out that anger is a thing that could destroy people. We deal with inmates, we deal with prisoners, and a lot of people go to prison. In fact, the first set of cases I did was because people got angry and they killed other people. But fortunately for them, they weren't tried for many years. So we filed a fundamental rights action on their behalf, and a lot of them were eventually released. But it would have been the other cases that have been charged immediately. Some of them would have been sentenced for life, and in worst cases, sentenced to death. So what led them to that was just anger. They were angry. Somebody offended them, and they got into a fight, and the other person died. So anger is something actually very important that we need to control. So how do we manage it? Before we go there, I'll just narrate a little story I saw on somebody's profile yesterday. So it's the story of the snake and the saw. So the snake saw, while moving, was injured by a saw, laying live. Saw used by carpenters. So the snake was angered because it got injured, and he wanted to revenge. So what did the snake do? The snake wrapped itself around the saw in anger, and it was trying to squeeze the saw, trying to squeeze the saw before it strikes it. So he was squeezing, he was in pain, but he said, no, I wasn't going to give up. This guy has injured me, and he's still injuring me. So he was seeing it as a fight. So in the long run, whilst trying to do that, the injury became more, and eventually the snake died. What killed the snake is an uncontrolled anger. And this is the story of many people, So many times it pays just to keep quiet. And how do we control anger? So I will narrate some of the sayings of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He spoke extensively on the issue of anger. And he says, first is to identify that anger is from Satan. Second is that when you are angry, you keep quiet. So most times when we are angry and we want to talk, sometimes it gets out of control. So you talk, the other person is talking back. Once you find out that you are talking, and you see that both of you are on the same level, somebody tries to go higher than that level. So that is when the person picks up a weapon or something. And before you know it, it could lead to death. Before you know it, it could lead to anything. So when you talk, so one of the first ways of controlling, managing anger is what? Learning to keep quiet. It's not everything you react to. So in fact, if you want to react, make sure you don't react immediately, so that at least you would have been able to assess the issues, not when you are angry. So that is one. The secondly is that when you are angry, you are standing up. And these are things that have been proved. You can also try it. When you are angry, you are standing up, you sit down. When you're hungry and you're standing up, you sit down. So this is one of the ways of controlling it. You can try it, and everyone can try it. It's a social, what's it called, experiment that you can try. And if you are sitting down and you are still angry, you sleep. Try lying down and sleeping. You get up the hunger. And also, anger is from, it's said that anger is from fire. So when you are hungry, you probably have a bath. It's also one of the ways of controlling. These are not conventional ways of controlling angers, but they're actually ways of controlling it if you try it. So, and also, one good way of controlling anger is when you are hungry, you move away from the scene of anger. So when you're hungry, you move away. So that this allows you to think. This allows you not just to act at that particular point in time because you're angry. So these are some of the ways of controlling anger. And of course, another way of controlling is actually seeing therapists. So these are things that we will do. So see people who can actually, offer some level of advice on how we can properly, control this anger, because anger is the greatest destroyer. So, and one of the ways of controlling anger is actually, if you have a child who is hungry, take him to Oregon. If you have a boy who is hungry, so just take him to Oregon. Let him go and see boys of his age. So they'll bring out people who are there because they got angry and they killed the other or injured somebody and they got behind bars. And I can say Oregon is even okay. It's still very, it's still very, it's more or less like a home. So go a step further, take him to Adeokuta, Postal Institution, where you have more, the environment there is a little bit more difficult. So when they see people who have gotten into trouble, they are likely not to want to get into similar trouble. So sometimes you see this person is a bully, this person is this and is that, and it keeps at that. So one of the ways of controlling this is actually making them see children who have done similar things and have gone into trouble and are behind bars for 1, 2, 3 years and are learning their lessons. So the child will know that, I hope I have to stop this so that I don't become what they have become. So these are some of the ways, practical ways of stopping anger or combating anger. So I'll move to another topic, which is key moral values to teach children. So there are a lot of moral values that our boys need to know, and not just boys, everybody. And if they have this foundation, they will likely be able to navigate the vagaries of life. So because one of the major cause of moral decadence today is because of the lack of morals. So when you look deep, when you look at the politicians, when you look at the homes, when you look at, people are not disciplined. When you look at relationship between husband and wife, and generally, even in the workplace. So the bane is what is lack. And the foundation for every moral decadence is just 4. So it's foundation by some scholars. It's 4. One is lack of knowledge, ignorance. So the second is injustice. So the 4th is lust, self-desires, and the last is anger. Yes, the last is anger. So it was an old scholar that mentioned this. And in combating the moral decadence, they also need the 4 things, the 4 opposites to combat them. So one is knowledge. Like what we are doing today is knowledge sharing. So we had this the case of Mr. Bunmi. I hope I got his name right. And also we're going to hear from Mr. Taiwo Akinlami. And I believe that this 1 hour would, and with the little I'm also saying, there are things that, this lesson, so we need our boys, we need them to learn. Beyond social media today, beyond the bandwagon, what's it called, platform, for instance, Twitter. I just see a lot of people just follow the trend. We should be able to make our children discerning. They should really know real knowledge. Take them to classes, give them books, expose them to real knowledge. So with real knowledge, they'll combat ignorance. And when ignorance is combated, is a step towards having a morally upright society. So second is lust, self-desire. So when you find out that somebody raped somebody today, it's because of that lack of self-control. You understand? So it's controlled by the desire, by what he sees, by what he watches. He sees a lady and he wants to get between the lady's thighs. You understand? It's because they don't have self-control. So, and by also learning, by exposing them, and by also building their spiritual lives. So we can't run away from this. You understand? Because for some of us who have tried to be disciplined, and the greatest assistance you have gotten was from religion, from the foundations we have. So whether through our Islamic religion, whether through our Christianity, Judaism, whatever. So let them have a foundation, a strong religious foundation. This will go a long way in helping them control their self-desires and their lust. So the third one is anger. I've mentioned how to control anger. Anger is actually one thing. So some of the moral decadence is fighting people, bullying people, you understand, cultism. All these things are as what led to them was actually anger. So a lot of people become cultists because they were bullied. So they want to fight for themselves. So one of the ways of fighting for themselves is joining other gangs that will help them combat their friends. So once we're able to combat anger, we are also it will go a long way. So patience will combat anger. So we need to heighten our level of patience in order to control. So other things that we need to know is we need to teach our children to respect everyone. So many times we teach them to respect those who are older. But respect is actually, people who are respectful when you see them actually deal with those who are below them. So we need to teach our children. You have a housemaid. You must teach them to respect them, irrespective of their background. You understand their economic background. So you need to teach them respect. You need to teach them to respect their younger ones at home. So respect is reciprocal. So you need to make them see life from that lenses, not just from up then below. No, they also have to know that they need to respect their mates, and they also need to respect those who are below them. So this will also heighten their level of moral, moral consciousness. Another thing is the family. You need to make them value the family, and they won't be able to value the family if they are not good parents. So you saw the experiences shared by the last speaker. You understand? And today it still has, the psychological, trauma is still there. So you need to provide that enabling environment. It's not just about using force to coerce our children. You need to be able to speak with them, take them out on a dinner. Not just if you have a son who is troubled, or who is going through a lot of issues or something, of having, showing some kind of a negative traits. Take them out of, in a position of love, in an atmosphere of love and care. Speak to that person. And when you speak to people, people actually listen, particularly young men. So you are imprinting something on their heart. It's more or less like just putting something on the rock. It will never go. So beyond just using force and the like, so we need to go the extra mile, towards, ensuring that we bring them closer. So the family is the foundation. So create that environment where your child wants to be like you in a good way. So if you ask yourself today, are you bringing up a child, and are you proud of what you have today? And do you want your child to be like you? So that is one question we all need to ask ourselves. So you need to create, and also you also make them also understand respect for religion, not just their religion, other people's religion too. So one of the bane of the current world we have is that we have a lot of bigots, and they cut across. So now the Muslim sees the Christian and is suspicious, the Christian sees the Muslim and is suspicious, and these also go to tribal. In fact, one of the major issues we have in Nigeria are religious issues. You understand? So you see Boko Haram do this, you see other people do that, It's because of these things that have not, this foundation that has not been laid. You understand? So we need to lay this foundation of respect for other people's religion. And this will also go a long way in curing some of the moral vices we find today. People joining terrorist gang, and also people becoming bigots and labeling other people and the likes. So these are things that we need to. And also I've spoken about justice also. So you need to ensure justice. You need to give them a sense of having justice. So when we have justice, so everybody will cry about injustice today, and it starts from the family. A lot of parents destroy their homes because they loved one of their children or some of their children, and they showed it. You understand, neglecting others. So when you find out that brothers killing brothers, sisters killing sisters, you find out that some siblings have become the worst enemies that you can ever find, is because the parents have laid that foundation for injustice. So we need to show people that justice is the way, and we start from the home. It's only when you can show justice at home that you can now preach justice, in the larger society. So also another one is honesty. It can be overemphasized. Are you honest yourself? You're a civil servant, and your children know that you take bribes. So how can you tell them to be morally upright? So this is not, you need to show the example. So we need to be honest in very little things. And you can be sure that your child knows, and they watch it, that they are watching you. So when you call on phone and you say, hello sir, I'm not sir, and you are right in your parlor in Bagada, Lagos, your child is noting it. So next time when you tell the child not to lie, say, my daddy lies too. I recall when I was young, I went to my cousin's place, and there were some children, You can actually see, this was a long time ago, early 90s. And they were saying, students of 7, 8, 9, 10, saying, my dad went to meet the teacher, that why would you not allow me to cheat in the exam? Why would you can imagine the kind of foundation the parents of those children have laid for them. And the children were very proud that their children went to confront the teacher because the teacher did not allow them to cheat in an examination. This is as far back as 1993. You can imagine what is happening today. So you see, so honesty is actually something that we need to not just preach, but we need to show. So, and also you need to tell them not to never hurt people. You understand? Because it has a way of spiraling, and also cultivate an atmosphere of love. So when you cultivate an atmosphere of love around yourself, you also show it to others. So thank you very much. I think I'll need to stop here. You gave me just 20 minutes. So you can see, so already you have over-exhausted the time.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. That was very eye-opening. I think that one key thing I learned was respect for other people's religion. I think that that's very key. And I also think that respect for other people's tribe. I think that that's also one very key thing that we also need to pay attention to. So thank you so much, Ahmed. He would just like to encourage you to stick around for the Q&A as we bring our next speaker up. Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly read Mr. Taiwo Akinlami's profile. It's coming up next. Mr. Taiwo Akinlami is the co-founder and CEO of Power Parenting. Via the comment section. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? If you can hear me, please, could you say yes via the comment section? Okay, awesome. Mr. Taiwo Akinlami is the co-founder and CEO of Power Parenting Company, LLC. He's a child's rights and family strengthening expert and advocate. His mandate of securing a friendly and protective environment for the African child received a global attention in 2017 when his project was showcased at the Europe, Middle East, and Africa Child Safety Summit, organized by Facebook and Google. He made an outstanding and well-accepted address showing that in matters relating to securing a friendly and protective environment for children, enlightenment is superior to enforcement. Akinlami, Africa's leading social development lawyer, is the principal partner of Gilgard Partner, a social development law firm. Akinlami is a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants, a certified management consultant conferred by the International Council of Management Consulting Institute, ICMCI, and he currently consults for UNICEF, USAID, UNFPA, the British Council, and SOS Children's Villages on policy formation, curriculum development, and training. Mr. Taiwo Akinlami would be talking today on the importance of the father in child development, the causal effect of father absence, and breaking the silence on sexual abuse in boys, its existence, signs, effects, and treatment. Finally, he'll be speaking on the effects of masturbation and pornography. Please let's welcome Mr. Taiwo Akinlami. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me. I've joined the program for a while and I've listened to all the conversations that have gone before. They have been rich, they have been helpful. You know, communication must be helpful. There must be something we want to take away. If it is not helpful, then we are engaged in an academic exercise, which belongs to the academics. But if we are going to have conversations that are going to help, it has to be practical, and that's what I've listened to in the previous presentation. Practical ways of doing things. The first thing I want to say is that what you have asked me to speak about is a symposium discussion. One of it is a book. Talk about absence of the father, talk about the impact of masturbation, how boys should speak of child sexual abuse. These are massive conversations that would take a lifetime to, to unbundle, So what I'm going to try to do is to speak in terms of principle that cut across and try to find some undergirding practical instructions that I can give in the circumstance. First, let me thank you for putting this program together. For the beginning of changing the narrative is to have conversations. If you do not have conversation, narratives cannot change. The truth of the matter is that as it is today, boys, men are more endangered. The unfortunate thing is that is when the society is thinking the other way around. Because of the fact that there is a thinking that is already established in society that the endangered species is the girl child. And so because of that thinking, which is entrenched and registered in our conscious and subconscious, we do not pay attention to men. So I think that the number one thing I want to say is that I don't see how we can have a conversation about the role of the father in Nigeria, for example, as a third world country, without talking about the state of the nation. This is a conversation where we talk about a people and we talk about the situations that they face. It is important that we understand that we cannot discuss it outside their sociology. We are all products of influence. We are all products of our environment. If we remove sociology, we remove the environment from a conversation, what we are doing is that we are stripping whatever principle that we are trying to pass across of context, because everything must be discussed within a context. The context of being a human being in Nigeria is different from being a context of being a human being in a developed country. Somebody says an alligator, a lizard in Nigeria will not become an alligator in America. I said I agree, but will be an American alligator who has more rights in some instances than a Nigerian human being. So you may not become an alligator in America, but you are going to be an American alligator who in some circumstances, or even in most circumstances, have some rights that human beings in Nigeria do not have. So I've come to a point in my work where I cannot have conversation about children, about fatherhood, about parenting, about child's rights, without talking about the state of the nation. The reason why there's so much pressure in the family today is because fathers are distracted. And please, when I tell you fathers are distracted, I'm not talking about fathers that are hooked on drugs. I'm not talking about those ones. I'm not talking about fathers that are hooked on immorality. I'm not talking about fathers that are just generally irresponsible. No, I'm talking about men that want to be responsible, men that want to be there for their family, men that want to do the needful. Unfortunately, because we live in a country where the responsibility of all institutions is lying on the shoulder of one institution, then there's a disequilibrium. That disequilibrium leads to pressure. That pressure impacts the way we raise our children. Now, for example, when you talk about fatherhood, the meaning of fatherhood is a father is a source. That's number one, which anybody can be. Anybody can be a source. All you need to be a source is to be able to sleep with a woman. It's called erection. Once you have erection and you can sleep with a woman, then you become a source. But the second one is the sustainer. A source and a sustainer. A father is also a sustainer. You must sustain what you sourced. If you source a person, it is your responsibility to sustain in partnership with your wife, right? In partnership with your partner, you have to be able to sustain. Now, that sustainability is strengthened. In the developed climate, the state regulates both being a source and being a sustainer. In countries like China, for many years, they regulate the idea of being a source. You cannot just say you want to be a source, because they looked at the population explosion. They looked at how many people the state can look after. And so they now decided that the way they were growing as a nation, they were going to run into crisis if they did not regulate birth. And so what did they do? In China for many years, it was one child, one family. That's what they were doing there. Now, few years ago, it became one child, two children, one family. So now in Nigeria, nobody controls the source. All you need is erection. So, and you can have as many children as possible. There is no regulation as to how many children you can have. So number two, to be a sustainer, it takes moral dignity, it takes positive value system, then it takes economics. Your economics have to be right. So now what do we have in Nigeria? Now to raise a child, you need 4 institutions. The first institution is the family. The second institution is the community. The third institution is the state. The fourth institution is an international community. Now, you know that the responsibility of the family, who the father leads, is to inculcate positive value system in the children. The responsibility of the community is to corroborate what the father does. The responsibility of the state is to create level playing field. We call it social investment that will lead to social protection. That is the role of the state. But unfortunately, the international community panders to interest. International community is not on the side of anybody. It is according to interest. So when you now look at Nigeria, that load that 4 institutions are supposed to carry, only one institution is carrying it. And our idea in Africa is that the man is the one that must carry all the load, is the breadwinner. And my money is my money. Our husband's money is our money. So when you look at that, you see that the man is under a lot of pressure. Remove school fees, healthcare, and all of these things from the bill of a man. The man will live a saner life and will be able to spend time with his children. Please note, before now, I used to criticize men who don't spend time with their children. But I don't criticize them anymore. I empathize with them. I try to let them see the implication of not spending time, but I try to also empathize to let them know that I know why it is not easy to spend time with your children. And I will round up that part of the conversation this way. Look, if you start having children at 30, and let's say you have 2, maybe the age gap between the 2 is 3 years or 4 years, and you have 2. So by the time you are going to raise your child, he's going to go to primary school, secondary school, university. You are not likely to be free from raising that child until you are 55 or thereabouts. And when you are raising your child in Nigeria, you are responsible for everything. You are on your own. Your child is not a Nigerian citizen. Your child is your citizen. Because everything the state is supposed to provide for the child, you are the one providing it. You are the one providing education. You are the one providing health care. You are the one providing shelter. You don't earn salary yearly, but landlord will ask you for money yearly. You are the one providing everything. So when you are providing all of that, your life seems to be on hold while you are providing for your children. If a man is earning 200,000 in Nigeria, let's say your salary is 200,000 in a month. If you save all the money, you don't spend it at all, that's 2.4 million. That is, if you want to send your child to any school that is meaningful in Nigeria, 2 children, that 2.5 million is not enough for a year, for a term, for a session, for 2 children or 3 children. Now, because what has happened is that the public school system has crashed completely. It does not exist. In Lagos State, for example, there are over 20,000 private schools competing with 1,700 government schools. And this government school, most of them are not even fit to be attended by a goat, not to talk of being attended by human beings. And when you go to the private sector, there are all kinds of things there. So for me, until we begin to have a conversation that addresses the state of our nation, if Nigeria is not well, its citizens cannot be well. If Nigeria is not well, our fathers will be distracted. Now look, all this analysis I've given you is for people of the upper crust too. I'm not talking about people of the lower crust. Those who live in less than $1, less than $199 per day. according to World Poverty Clock, says Nigeria has a population of 92 million poor people, ultra poor, who are living on less than $199 per day. Beside that, 25% of our population outside the 92 million are vulnerable people. It means they cannot afford basic things of life. Now, when you say people are ultra poor, they are not only poor, they are poor again, but they don't have enablement to remove themselves from poverty. That's what it means. So when you're looking at the upper cross, those are the white collar people, entrepreneurs who are still making money, who are still bringing in something. We're not talking about people living in abject poverty, and you don't need to look too much. Go to Odekunle, go to Makoko, go to all of these densely populated area in Lagos. You will see the abject poverty that people are living in. So until we begin to address the state of the nation, until we begin to make government responsible, the welfare and the security of the people shall be the primary aim of government. Until government becomes responsible for welfare and security, we are not going anywhere. So what should our agitation be? Those who can run, those who can endure, those who understand the situation, they should strive to give the best to their children. There are some people, no matter how much they strive, they can't give much to their children because their existence is already abused. And so a parent or a father whose existence is abused cannot do anything. He's going to met out that same abuse to the children. There's no point, trying to be careful about saying that. So that's the first thing I want to say. We must be interested in an agitation that wrestles power from those who have made it their personal, a tool of personal comfort, to those who are able to make it a tool of service to humanity, a tool of service to the people who they are supposed to be representing. That's very, very important. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to abuse of the boy child, see, I was on a platform this week, I think it was early this week, and a woman was saying that, who is a journalist, she was saying that abuse of boy children sexually is not a very, very rampant thing. It's something that happens once in a while. Maybe if you have 100 cases, you have one boy. And my first reaction was to want to begrudge and say, why? Where did she get that figure from? But as a second thought, I know she was pandering to sociology. I know she was pandering to popular belief. I know she was pandering to this subconscious mind of the society that fails to address what boys are going through. And so I felt what she needed was education. She didn't need condemnation. She didn't need reprimand. It doesn't need to be reprimanded. All she just needed is education. And that is why platforms like this are critical. Platforms like this are important. Now, if you look at the report on violence against children, 2014, spearheaded by UNICEF, by the federal government, and this is the latest report on violence against children in Nigeria. It found that one out of every 4 girls is sexually molested. 1 out of every 10 boys is sexually molested. So if you have 100 boys, it means 10 boys have been sexually molested. Now, the report went further to say that when it comes to within the school system, 15-point-something% of girls are sexually molested. 24.4% of boys are sexually molested, which means more boys are sexually molested within the school system than girls. That is the report. Now, that report was not written by boys. It was not written by men. It was not a men's report. It was a UNICEF report. You know that the United Nations tilt towards women, girl power and all of that. But in that report, figures cannot lie. Figures reveal that within the school system, more boys are sexually molested. You see, I was sexually molested when I was 6 years old, between age 6 and 8, and it was Syria. And the truth of the matter is that I'm 51 years old. So I was sexually molested when I was 6 years old, and which means that I was sexually molested like 44 years ago, or 44 years ago, thereabouts. And then it was not a conversation that people had. As a matter of fact, it was not even believed that boys were being abused. But that's a story of 44 years ago, a story of 45 years ago. It's been happening since then. I was not the only one that was molested. My twin brother was also molested. And now there were boys who were staying with that particular woman. When we returned from school, all of us were molested. That's in one household, right? You now think about other households, and that was 44 years ago, 15 years into Nigeria's independence, but it has been happening since then. You look at the story that it was a fiction, but the story that October 1 tried to tell, that Afolayan tried to tell in October 1 of a boy, that was messed up by a clergy. And when you look at the history of the Catholic Church and the facts that have come out, you know that both boys and girls are sexually molested. So we need to correct this idea that that boys are not sexually molested, and again, the problem again comes from our law. The criminal code does not recognize the fact that a man can be raped. The only salvation recently was the VAP, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, that recognizes that use the word he or she, and so that gives a level of leeway. But you see, the greatest solution for the boy child is the Child Rights Act, 2003, which has been domesticated in 25 states of the Federation, and we make it abundantly clear that either a boy child or a girl child can be sexually molested. But this is the point. It can be molestation, there can be sexual abuse, there can be sexual assault for both genders, now both sexes. But this is the problem. The problem is that law is always an instrument of social change. The law is supposed to regulate the life of a people. The law is supposed to be a tool by which we interpret our lives. But if that law does not take into cognizance the general belief of the people, the law becomes irrelevant. So in 2003, after the Child Rights Act was promulgated, one of the things that UNICEF did was to go around Nigeria to create awareness for the Child Rights Act, so that people, and what was UNICEF dealing with? UNICEF was not just creating awareness, UNICEF was dealing with belief system that, encouraged, child abuse. For example, there's a report, as a follow-up to the report on violence against children, 2014, Nigerian government and UNICEF developed a document known as Priority Action. Under Priority Action, one of the things they did was to develop a document which they call Drivers of Violence Against Children. Now, in Drivers of Violence Against Children, it was found that in sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria has the highest number of parents who abuse their children in the name of child discipline to physical violence. So you see that belief is strong in that area. So because of that, we need to have conversation that is helpful, conversation that is meaningful, conversation that is empathetic, conversation that is inspirational. And how do we do all of that? It is to let boys understand that they are as endangered as the girl child. It's to let boys themselves and men understand that who is the person who abuses a child, it is either, we've seen cases of mothers abusing their boy child. We've seen cases of father abusing their boy child. So we've seen cases of teachers sodomizing, their students. We've seen cases of peers sodomizing themselves. As a matter of fact, I had a case, a few years ago where my client's son was being sodomized in a school by two seniors. And that is rampant. I did a product which I called, so you want to send your child to a boarding school, ask this 11 child protection focused question. And one of the stories we share was the story of this 10-year-old boy who was being sodomized on campus in school. And when she reported to the Reverend Father that he was being sodomized, the Reverend Father just prayed for him. The school chaplain prayed for him. I said, the Lord will keep you, they will not see you again. And I think the prayer was answered. For a few days, they did not come back. And then again, they came back again. And one day, the boy had to call the mom, 10-year-old boy, and ran home and said he was going home. So it is rampant. So what we need to do, I think there are three fundamental things we need to do. Number one, we need to accept that it is real. Number two, we need to begin to educate our children. It's called sexuality education. I'm having a master class in September, which I call Guerrilla Strategies for Preventing Child Sexual Abuse. And one of the way forward is that we need to change what we teach children about their sexuality. When you gather children together and you tell boys that there's somewhere called private part, public part, and you tell them that it's only when somebody touch their private part, which you call penis, which you call buttock, it's only that time that they should talk. That if anybody touches their hand and those ones there, and when you tell them things like good touch, bad touch, you are just causing trouble for them. Because if you study, you know that most of the people who abuse children, they are not impulsive abusers. They are habitual abusers. They are people who plan what they want to do. Now, please note, there are impulsive abusers who just chance on children, right? But most of the people who abuse children, research has shown that these people are not compulsive. They are people who have a plan. And those who abuse children don't begin with penis. They don't begin with buttock. They don't begin with all of these things we are telling children as private or as public part. They begin with holding their hand. They begin with conversation. There are 4 things the abuser does. The first thing the abuser does is to profile a child. Look at the boy who is dull. Look at the boy who is not confident. Look at the boy who does not speak his mind. Look at the boy. So when he looks at all of that, he profiles, he focuses on the child. Please note, when a lion wants to, when you watch Nat Geo Wild and a lion wants to prey, the lion does not go with hunger. The lion goes with strategy. The lion does not fight a lost battle. It hardly does, because it's a very strategic animal. What does it do? It stays somewhere and begin to view all the prey. Then it's not going to roar. It's just going to be watching. Once he notices the weakest one, what he's going to do now, he will roar. When he roars, the animals will start running. When they start running, when the lion is running, the lion does not go for the nearest. The lion goes for the weakest. Because he's hungry, doesn't even have too much strength. He's going for the weakest, the one who has displayed the highest level of weakness. That's why we need to tell our boys to be bold, to stand up, introduce yourself properly. What is your name? I take pride in introducing myself. Whether the few times I appear in court or I'm at a program, my introduction just stands me out. I am Taiwo, Akinlami. Nobody is rushing me to introduce myself. Nobody. So I take time. You introduce yourself. When you are talking to people, you look straight into their eyes. You are bold. You are confident. But again, all of those things are critical. Don't let me go to the again. Now, number 2 is the fact that the second thing the abuser does is the abuser begins to groom. The woman who abused me was calling me husband. And my parents thought that she was joking. You're just playing with me. A child is not a husband. Nobody should call you husband. Nobody should call your child a husband. The child is a man. Is a boy. It's not a husband. So you don't call people husband. You don't. And she was calling me husband. And you know what she was doing? She was doing with me what a man should do with a woman. She was doing with me what a woman should do with a husband. And my parents did not have a problem with it, because they did not know what was going on. Now, so the third thing the abuser does is that the abuser now carries out the abuse. And the last thing the abuser does, the abuser begins to threaten. And the abuser begins to use subtle means, to either threaten you or to either, be telling you everything is okay and all of that. So for me, at the end of the day, we need to teach our children proper thing. We need to move away from this thing we call private thought, good thought, bad thought. We need to move to necessary thought and unnecessary thought. Necessary space. Now, private space, it's away from public space. Anybody can be abused. A boy child can be abused so much as a girl child can be abused. I hope you know that there's a movement now, very strong, particularly in Europe and America, asking that pedophilia should be allowed the same way homosexuality and all of these things are allowed, that a man can just feel, for a woman. Are you getting what I'm saying? So it's important. So lastly, on the issue of on the issue of abuse of boys, we need to teach our boys. We tell them to be bold. We need to tell them to be confident. It's very, very important. But one of the greatest threats to confidence is abuse. Because you see, when you are emotionally abused, for example, you see yourself from the words, the people speak to you, their words become your mirror through which you see yourself. And that is very, very pathetic. You are not going to be confident beyond, those who are raising you, because those who are raising you, when I was growing up, my mother would say, you are a useless child, only comparable to a dog. My mother would say, you are a biradino, that is when I gave birth to you, I counted my loss. The pain I went through giving birth to you was a loss. You are a useless child. Now you can imagine I can never be confident. I can never be bold. I was not dealing with low self-esteem. I was dealing with no self-esteem. No, N-O, self-esteem. That's what I was dealing with. Because those who were authorities in my life, who could tell me how much I was worth, who could tell me who I was, they told me I was a goat. I was an animal. I was a useless child, only comparable to a dog. And so I grew up, I grew up with no self-esteem. And I couldn't express myself to anybody, until, all the experiment of living a different life started 23 years ago when I gave my life to Christ. And that was the beginning of transformation in my life. I became a Christian. The reason why I do everything that I'm doing today is because I became a Christian. I met Christ, whom I was told he could save me, and I gave my life to him, and that began the journey. And that's why I'm able to be talking to you today, because I found it. But the truth of the matter is that many people never found it. And that when I tell you I found Christ, it's not a formula. It's not that it's a formula we now use. No, it is the fact that I learned certain principles to which I committed myself to, which changed my life. And I would dovetail into the last part of my conversation with you, which is masturbation. I'm writing a series now. I've been writing a series now on sexual impact of sexual abuse. I've been writing that series for a while. And on Sunday, I'm going to write a series which I titled, as a matter of fact, I've written it. I'm going to post it on Sunday, which I titled Impact of Sexual Abuse, How I Was Delivered from Masturbation. So it's a two-part article. I'm going to post the first part on Sunday, and I'm going to post the next part, the week, upper week, God's willing. And what I'm saying there is very simple. So I've done a series before then, my deliverance, impact of sexual abuse. I was talking about how I got over pornography. And what I need to tell you very simply is the fact that when you are sexually abused as a child, you're sexually molested, what has happened is that your sexuality is damaged. Now, that sexuality is your essence. You are a man, your gender speaks to your essence. It speaks to your purpose. There are things you are supposed to do in life, which your agenda speaks to. So when your sexuality is stolen from you, the way it was stolen from me, and your gender is messed up. So what happens is that you are opened up to a life of disequilibrium, a life of imbalance. A lot of things will begin to happen to you on their own by virtue of that injustice that was done to your gender, that stealing that was done to your gender. A lot of things will begin to take their course, because what has happened is that when they steal your virginity, what they actually stole is your essence. What they stole was your innocence. What they stole was your discipline. What they stole was your order. What they stole was your listening. They stole all of those things, because you see, your sexuality is supposed to be managed in a way that you are able to understand order, the order of it, what it's supposed to do. But when it is stolen, it is truncated. I was introduced to sex through abuse. And when you are introduced to something through abuse, there's no boundaries, So I became addicted. I've been having sex with other children as a child. So for me, sex was not sacrosanct. It was not anything important, because it was stolen from me. Then number two, we were doing it, with other children. Now that is boys to boys, anal sex, and girls to boys when we were doing hide and seek. So I was already messed up. Then as I grew older, I got to know that there was something called pornography. I got addicted to that one heavily. As I was watching pornography, when you are feeding on pornography, you have to find an outlet of expression. Now, that outlet of expression can be rape, because that's what happened to Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy is one of the most criminal, I don't want to use the word wicked, serial killer the world has ever known. He was executed by electric chair in 1989. Before he was executed by electric chair, he confessed to have killed 34 people. Investigation revealed that he killed between 34 and 100 people. He was a serial killer who first raped women before he would kill them. But he granted an interview in 1989. And in 1989, he said that he was initiated into rape and violent life by the fact that he stumbled on pornography at the age of 17. When he was going on the street, there was this pornography Playboy that were thrown away in dustbin. He started looking at them voraciously, to the point that he had an insatiable appetite for sex, and nobody, I mean, if you're having an insatiable appetite for sex, even if you are married, your wife cannot cope. Who can cope? So it began. So when you launch onto pornography, two things will happen. Your quest for sex is going to become insatiable. So I want men, don't go into porn. Porn is not going to help you. Then number two, if you cannot rape, you are going to be masturbating because you have to find the expression. You have to find the expression. So since I was not bold enough to commit rape, so I started looking for expression. Masturbation became my comfort zone. You see, I masturbated to a point that I will have bruises on my penis. I masturbated to a point, right, that if I was going on the street and I felt like masturbating, you know, I masturbated to a point, if I was going on the street and I felt like masturbating, you know, I'll go to the street, corner of the street, and I'll use saliva to masturbate. That's how perverted, you know, I was, you know, and so my life was in a big mess. Pornography, masturbation. Then I did a lot of sleeping with prostitutes. Those prostitutes in the boutique and those one on the street. I did all of that, you know. But I encountered change in 1997, February 16, when I gave my life to Christ. When I gave my life to Christ, I began to understand that there was help for me, and I began to understand that what was going to happen to me was that there has to be a replacement of the value system that exposes me to the kind of life that I live. Please note. So this is my own journey to change. My journey to change was I met Christ. I got to know that there's hope for me. I can change. I began to ask the question, what is the pathway to change? Because that I met Christ does not mean that change is not going to happen to you. I began to define change as an ever-present possibility for any human being ready to take responsibility. If you are ready to take responsibility, there's change. So what did I need to do? When you take a decision that you're not going to do something again, that decision itself is not going to last if it's built on determination. People think, I will never do it again. There's nothing like I will never do it again. Your decision is not going anywhere if the strength of that decision is just determination. I've decided. Decided what? To your determination, you must now change. You begin to work on the changing your value system, what I believe, because you see, in life, it is your values that drive your decision. It is your value system that drive your decision. So if somebody loves to enjoy life, right, but his value system is so weak, so anytime he feels like enjoying life, he's going to go and meet a prostitute. If somebody also loves to enjoy life and his value system is sound, he might just watch a good movie, he's enjoying life. He might just hang out with friends of like passion and they gist and they talk, he's enjoying life. Both of them are enjoying life, but the direction in which they are going to go in finding their enjoyment is determined by their value system. You rise and fall on your value system. So a guy told me on radio, you said you did all of these things. What can I do to stop? I said, stop. Just stop. He said, so when I stop, what's next? I said, so when you stop, come and see me. When you stop, I'll give you some advice. So you see, the way it works is this. What to see regularly and what to hear is going to determine what to think. Your thought is feeding on the information that you expose your ears and your eyes to. What you think is going to become your belief. When you think, it's called meditation. What you meditate on is going to become your belief. Your belief is going to become your value system. That your value system is intangible, it cannot be seen. That your value system will be manifested in your habits. Your habit will attract your friends to you. Your friends will attract your opportunities. Your opportunities in life will determine your reward. Your reward in life will determine your significance. So your life is predicated on what to see and what to hear. I cannot change your life, I cannot help you until I change what to see and what to hear. When I see what you are seeing, when I hear what you are hearing, I can predict your life. So what happened to me was that I decided one decision I needed to take was to move away from pornography, but I was not going to be able to move away from pornography if I did not have an alternative content. I began to expose myself to alternative content. And before I knew it, my life began to change before my very eyes. So I got married at the age of 36 years old. That's when I got married. I gave my life to Christ at the age of 27. I got married at the age of 36, and I abstained from sex and masturbation completely for 9 years. I've been married for 15 years now. I've been married for 15 years, husband of one wife, no scandal. Oh, did you say no scandal? I said yes. Or did you say there's no temptation? I didn't say there's no temptation, but I said there's no scandal. I'm a husband of one wife, been married to one wife, 15 years, no scandal, no side chick, nothing by the side. Man, look at the kind of life I used to live. But you see, the other day, I was downloading something on the internet, and something popped up on my laptop. What was it? It was pornography. You know, what did I do? I shut down the laptop. I tried to I tried to open my laptop again. It popped up. I took my entire laptop to Computer Village. I said, help me format it. I don't want to. Whatever document we want to whatever document we cannot take, let it perish. Format it. My principle is see no evil, hear no evil, go no near evil. If my life is going to change now, I just need to change the information I'm most exposed to today. So, and once I begin to see another kind of information, that information and that content is going to produce. Please note, it is from content that is going to determine conduct. And from conduct, you're going to get outcomes. So don't forget this principle. If you want to change anything, therapy is good. Therapy is good. And there's no therapy that's not going to tell you what I'm telling you now. If you think the meaning of therapy is to be irresponsible, somebody will just be telling, no, there's no such therapy. It is from content to conduct, then to what? To what was the third one? Well, I want to be sure you are listening. It is from content to conduct. Then what does that happen? You see the consequence at the end of the day. That's how these things work. I think with these very few words of mine, I've been able to convince you in the areas that I've been asked to speak on. You know, I can go on and on, but I think I should stop now. Thank you very much for having me. Now, let me quickly announce before I stop. You can follow me on Instagram at Taiwo Akinlami. I share freely, daily. People see me on Instagram, I wonder, what is he selling? I'm not selling anything, I'm just sharing. I hardly advertise anything for sale, you know. So you can come there and join me there. On every Friday, I do a broadcast. Every Friday, I'm still going to do it today. It's called Power Parenting every Friday on my YouTube channel and on our Facebook group. Our Facebook group is Taiwo Akinlami. You can join us there. What else? I think that's what I have to announce. In September, it's the month of September, I'm going to be doing a 2-day masterclass. It's titled Guerrilla Strategies for Preventing Child Sexual Abuse and how to reorder your life if you experience any form of sexual abuse. I'm going to be 2 days. I'm going to be spending 2 days. I'm going to spend 21 days after the 2 days to take questions, to talk to people. If you're interested in that masterclass, you can reach out to the organizers of this program and get registered. By Sunday, we're going to release the registration portal. It's going to be on my blog. You can pick it up there. Thank you very much for having me, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, sir. So I'm just going to take your questions immediately so that you can answer directly. So the very first question is that, So the very first question is, what are the signs that a boy is addicted to pornography and a son, so to speak, is addicted to pornography? And what ways can a parent handle the situation? What's the best way that a parent can handle the situation? And the second question is, what is the appropriate age to start teaching a boy moral values? You have the floor, sir. Okay, sorry, I'm going to need to unmute you. Okay, you can unmute now, sir.
Okay, so the question is, what signs?
Yes.
Well, I think the first thing is that, so let me first start by saying that there's no hard and fast science, that we can say It's going to differ from people to people. What we need to note is that we first need to accept that the platforms for accessing pornography has become diverse, has become multifaceted. When I was growing up, there was only one kind of pornography. It's called hardcore pornography. But today, you now have what we call softcore pornography, suggestive pornography. You now have hardcore pornography. That suggestive pornography is what in our music, things when somebody goes to the studio and record an album that says everything about sexuality. When somebody even went to the studio the other day during pandemic, Naramali went to the studio and recorded an album called Didolobo. That is, I can't even understand it. I think I should not go there. So the problem today is, it is not whether everybody is in pornography. That's the truth. It is not whether when my son sees pornography, if my son sees pornography or my daughter sees pornography, it is when they see pornography, what should they do? Because this is the point. What is pornography? Pornography is anything that arouses your sexual sensibilities unnecessarily onto lust. That's pornography. You can be listening to a music and it's pornographic. You can see a motion picture, it's pornographic. So in our society today, it is both hardcore pornography and softcore pornography. When you watch Big Brother, you see pornography there. So what we are, if you are still saying what is the sign is that everybody is seeing pornography. It's about what to do when they see the pornography. Are they going to turn their eyes? We're walking on the street, you see pornography, you see all of those things. So what we need to be more concerned about is to teach our children, this is the meaning of pornography, number one. Number two, this is what you do when you see pornography. Don't keep it to yourself, speak up, talk to someone. Very, very important. That's what I would advise.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. What is the appropriate age to start teaching your boy child moral values? What's the most appropriate age?
Is that a question for me?
Yes, sir.
Well, you know that children begin to see you before they hear you. Long before children understand your instructions, they understand your example. So the mistake we make is that we believe we don't take responsibility for what children learn from our example. Children begin to learn from our example before they learn from what we are instructing them. So I think from when the child is in the womb, that's when you need to conduct yourself right as a parent. When you conduct yourself right, your children are coming to emulate what you are doing. That is a simple thing. When a child is going to speak for the first time, the child speaks the dominant language of the environment in which the child is growing up. The question is who taught the child? So we don't take responsibility for what children learn early. We are still waiting. We are waiting for what they understand, forgetting that it is what they hear and what they see that inform what they understand at the end of the day. Language is a proof that what a child hears regularly is what informs what the child understands. So you see, the other day, there was a crisis in Ikoyi, Obalende area, of children when they finished secondary school. As they finished, the day they finished, they would tear their uniform, they will do all kinds of abnormalities, and they would try to get on the girl child, try to rape the girl child. And this particular time it was happening, and a good Samaritan, chanced on it and decided to do something about it, and it became, it went viral. And I was on Channels TV to discuss this thing. And what I was saying is that these children who you are talking about, they are beneficiaries of the example that was rampant around them. And so they became like the environment. So the much we can do when it comes to, I don't believe in teaching a child anything. I believe in exemplifying something to a child and then explaining it. That action that I took, this is why I took it. See, the other day I went to TV Plus and I was with my cousin, my nephew. Oluwase, it's very close to me. It's a nephew like a son. So we're together, and so I didn't drive that day. So I told a person who also I know, who we met on the program, but I've known her well before. It's my friend. I said, so you're going to give me a ride. Are you going to our area? I said, yes, I'm going. I will give you a ride. I said, okay, good. Thank you very much. So I went downstairs and I was waiting for her. When she was not turning up, I think she still had other businesses. I proceeded, I started going. Sheyi Tafe asked me, Daddy T, where are you going? I said, I'm going, I'll go and take Uber. He said, but Daddy T, you told somebody that you are going to ride with the person. I said, since the person did not come down. He said, no, Daddy T, the right thing is to tell her that you are going, so that when she comes down, she'll know that you have left. That's a 13-year-old boy tutoring me, telling me what I needed to do. And what did I do? I said, yes, it's true. Let me cuckoo wait. And we waited. Now, I could have told him, Sheyi, my friend, you are a child. What do you want? On that day, I validated his belief in order. But that day also, I can disrupt his belief in order. So for me, at what age do you begin to behave? At what age do you begin to carry yourself in a way you are supposed to carry yourself? At what age, when I was growing up, my mother would travel and my father would bring other women to the house. And he will warn us not to tell my mother what happened. What was he teaching us? He was teaching us that marriage vow did not mean anything. He was teaching us to be untruthful. He was teaching us to be deceptive. And the same father that will now call us and say, hey, so tough for me. Tell me the truth. I said, from where to where? We can't tell you the truth now. You are not an agent of truth. Are you getting me? So for me, let us focus more on what we do. And that's why I believe in the word of Abraham Lincoln. He said, how do you train a child the way he should go? You will go there first and come back and take the child with you. That is how to train a child the way he should go. You don't train a child the way he should go by example. The first bottle of cigarette that I smoked was the one that my father dropped. I became a drunkard before I knew the meaning of drunkenness. Because my father was a drunkard. Many days he would be drunk. He won't be able to find his way home. We have to go and bring him home. I started drinking. When I started returning bottle, when I was growing up, we would buy beer, top beer. All of those hap, they've been long. And when we bought them for visitors, I was the one who would go and buy. We'll go and deposit, we'll go and buy and deposit money. When we finish, when the visitors finish and they ask me to return the bottle, the residue that is left in the bottle, I'll start drinking it. It wasn't a problem because it was a rehearsal to become a drunkard. You have to start from somewhere. Nobody becomes a drunkard in one day. That's why some people now they can drink 6 bottles. When they started drinking 1 bottle. But me, I started drinking small. By the time I crystallized as a global drinker, I could drink 12 bottles sitting down somewhere. And my friend, my drinking partner in university, his name was Osa. When myself and Osa sat down to drink, we'll be drinking. When we're drinking, the woman selling the beer will come and meet us and say, we wanted to park the table. We'll tell the woman, you can't park the table. Because if you park the table now, begin to misbehave. People will not know that we have drunk to this level. If we begin to misbehave, now we want it to be justified to everybody that we have the right to misbehave because we have drunk 24 bottles. 12 for us, 12 for me. We sit down there, we'll be drinking. Urinate, come down, sit down. Eat, be drinking. Are you getting it? So, but look at where I started from. So we need to focus more on what we do. What do we do? What do we tell children? What do we do before children? It is our teaching must be patterned after our example. If not so, our example, our teaching will be useless and it will confuse our children.
Thank you very much, sir. This question is for Mr. Ahmed Adetola. Mr. Ahmed, someone is asking that, so there's a very thin line between discipline and abuse. And Mr. Taiwo Akinlami, please feel free to contribute as it is also your line of specialization. Someone is asking that there's a very thin line between discipline and abuse as a parent. How do you draw the line? And what is the best way to create rules and impose consequences in a way that doesn't hurt a boy? What are the ways? I think I'll just allow you to answer those two, and then we'll take the rest as
okay,
well.
You might need to repeat the second question after I might have answered the first question with possible contribution from Mr. Akinlami. Yes, I think it's just the need to gauge. For when you look at it, when you look at our appliances, for instance, the cars that we have, you will see that in some of the compartments in the bonnet, you will see they would say minimum, you will see maximum, and you also see there will be additional spaces. So when you go above the maximum, you understand? So that will mean that you're already getting out. If it goes below, that means it will affect that particular, what's it called, part in the car. If it gets to above minimum, then that is justified. Then if it gets up, so it's actually, there's actually a thin line. So, but I think the way of gauging it is, if you want to beat your child, you don't make it an everyday thing, and you don't make it beating after every occurrence. And if you are going to talk to a child, you also need to gauge what you say. You understand? Correct, not abuse. There's a difference between correcting and abusing. So because if it also has to do with the moral background of everybody. When you find some people cursing, so you find out that most times they are cursing because their parents equally cursed. So you don't curse your child. So there are things that you should not do at all. That once you do them, you're already abusing. So you know the limits. So for instance, cursing the child, making the child feel unwanted are things you should never do. So once you have ensured that that is in place, that means of course you have cut away some incidences of abuse. So discipline now will now depend on how frequent and also the gravity. So you don't want to beat your child and bring out a wire, then tie the child. So once you start engaging in those ones, you're already going beyond the limit. So if you also want to beat those things that would amount to discipline, you also have to also ensure that it is not frequent. So you do more of talking than actually beating. Do you understand? So I think it's just that. So there are things that you should not do at all. And there are things that when you do, you gauge in doing them. So I think that is just it. But I think everybody has this natural gauge. You just ensure that you don't pass this kind. That's my.
Thank you so much for answering that. So in a nutshell, you are actually parents actually agree that you should beat a child. I have my
Hello?
own
What is it?
opinion.
What is it?
So just to be clear, do you agree that a child should be beaten, like to be beaten physically?
No. See, I see. There are times that you need to introduce it. That is the truth. We might not agree on this, but patting a child, beating, smacking, I think they are necessary sometimes. You understand? So it is when you now go overboard about it that it becomes the problem, and also the manner. You understand? What do you use it's just sometimes it's necessary in my view, actually, but it shouldn't be a regular thing. It shouldn't be an everyday thing. I can't remember when last I beat my child. Do you understand? Or my children. I can't remember when last I beat them. But there will be times that I need to do that just to show them that, okay, there is pain when you do things sometimes. But you don't go overboard in doing them. That's my view.
Okay, so Mr. Taiwo, Akinlami, we'd like to hear from you.
1 minute, please.
Okay, so
I'm supposed to be in another webinar, so I think they're on my neck. So this is what I would say. Thin line between abuse and
physical abuse and discipline of a boy child.
Well, that thin line is defined by our culture. In the true sense of it, abuse is abuse, discipline is discipline. They don't mix. Discipline is to inculcate positive value system in a child. That's the essence of discipline. How do you inculcate positive value system? It begins with the identity of the child, because the child who does not know who or she is not going to be disciplined. You have never met a punished adult. But this Mr. Akinlami is very punished. No, you are going to meet Mr. Akinlami, a disciplined adult. The foundation of discipline is identity. No. I can't do that. Why is it that you cannot do that? Because, it is not in my nature to do that. So the purpose of discipline is to help a child to be conscious of his or her dignity of human person. That is the purpose of discipline. And you want him to be conscious of his discipline, what do you call it? We want him to be conscious of his dignity of human person, right? So, for example, I have a meeting with you now. I can go and collect another meeting from somewhere that we clash. Then I will switch off my phone. And if it's a paying program, you have paid some deposit to my account. And because I'm not conscious of who I am, so the point I'm making to you is that if the goal of discipline is to help a child to be conscious of his or her dignity of human person And the goal of abuse is to dehumanize the child. How do they meet? So abuse is dehumanization, is to make a person less human. When you look at a person, when you tie his hands and tie his leg, and you give him 6 strokes of the cane, and you go and sit down, and you do that for half a day, which was what my father did to me, that was dehumanization. Because you see, when you tie my hands and you tie my leg, no matter what I've done, you tie my leg, you tie my hand, I'm going to draw my personality from other things that were tied, like goats, like chicken. I'm going to believe that if chickens are tied and cows are tied and I'm tied, it means that we are the same thing. And that's how a child will interpret things. An adult hits an adult, will say the adult is unruly. An adult hits a child hits an adult, you say the child is irresponsible. And a child hits a child, you say the child is a bully. Then an adult hits a child, you say he's disciplined. How does it match? Now, if you know how to drive and you are driving on Lagos Road and you are applying one way, a road that you know that lane is one way. If a police officer arrests you, do they have the right to arrest you? Yes. When they arrest you and they slap you, are you going to accept it? No. Did you accept that you were wrong? Yes, I was wrong to apply it one way. Will you accept to be slapped? No. You can't accept to be slapped, because to slap you is to dehumanize you. No matter what you have done, you do not deserve to be dehumanized. Are you getting what I'm saying? A man was sentenced to death. Mr. Ahmed, we know about this case, Peter Nemi, sentenced to death. Only Sagbakoba approached the court that by virtue of the fact that the man has stayed too much on death row, he should be converted to the fact that he has served the sentence and he should be released. The lawyer on the other side argued and said, he's a condemned man. Then one of the justices of the Supreme Court answered and said, you are saying he's a condemned man. Is it possible that you want to cook a bowl of rice and you carry his leg and you put it on fire and you are using it to cook? And when he's shouting, he says he's a condemned man. Does that mean he does not have feeling as a person? That is what the Supreme Court said about a condemned man. No. Not to talk about a child who is trying to form habit, who is trying to follow your step. So for me, and I told you before that there's this document on drivers on violence against children. This so-called discipline, this so-called physical abuse is what the abusers hide behind to abuse children. So for me, as a person, for me, whether to cane or not to cane is a symposium discussion for me. But the bottom line for me is that be more interested in the purpose of discipline than the method. If you get the purpose right, when you want to, you will ask yourself, this thing I want to do now, is it going to dehumanize the child, or is it going to help the child to be conscious of his or her dignity of human person? There's no child who is abused who is conscious of his or her dignity of human person. I've met girls, I've met ladies who have used themselves in a particular way. And I've sat down to ask them, why are you using yourself? I said, but what is the value? I said, what do you mean, what is the value? I said, because they stole it from me. So if somebody can steal it from me, those who are kind enough to approach me, I will give them. The person I did not give raped me, collected it. So these ones that are even conscious enough to say, can we get down? I will give him, or I will give him. So because this one have the courtesy of asking, the one who did not ask, he got it. You know, so for me, that is it. And you see, one of the greatest points that we need to make today is that what is your mission? Is your mission to build or to pull down? You know, many parents, I keep telling people, I was not raised, I was erased. You know, because nature does not allow vacuum. It's either you are raising a child or you are erasing the child. Now I'm 51 years old. I'm still carrying the burden of how I was raised. I'm still dealing with issues till tomorrow of why I was raised to. And imagine that I've been on the path looking for healing, dealing with healing for the past 24 years now. You know, because I became a Christian at the age of 27, I'm 51 now, and I'm still dealing with issues. What has happened is that the impact of abuse is eternal, except there's divine intervention. And when that divine intervention comes, you still need to be working, because what has happened to you when you are abused is that your default becomes negative. Because between age 0 and 6, 80% of your personality is already formed, 80%. And so when a child is abused for 18 years, he became an adult, and he was still an adult for 9 years. And 27, he began to embark on the journey of change. He was already fully formed. I was already fully formed. So what we are now trying to do is to approach change, trying to relieve or repair that which was stolen from childhood. So for me, I will charge you as parents, if you are here, ask yourself the question, am I to build and am I to pull down? If I want to discipline my child, what am I trying to achieve? Is to help the child to be conscious of his or dignity of human person, so that the child can embrace a certain behavior that is commensurate to his or her identity. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I can't achieve that shouting on the child in public, slapping the child blue and back, pushing the guy around, cursing the child. I can't achieve it like that. I can only achieve it with first identify certain principles that we are going to admit, we are going to apply ourselves to as a family, which I'm going to lead. Then explain that principle. You know, I love what Mr. Ahmed said. He can't remember the last time he beat his child. This is the point. The reason why he cannot remember the last time he beat his child is because there are certain value systems which is communicating to those children. Are you getting it? And so because it's communicating those value systems to those children are behaving according to those value systems. Note, they're not going to be perfect. They're going to make mistakes because I'm not perfect. Mr. Ahmed himself is not perfect. All of us, we are not perfect. We are making mistakes. And so when you say somebody is an excellent student, what you are saying is that 70% he got it right, 30% he lost. So what happens is that what he got becomes so significant to the point that what he lost became irrelevant. So that what he got superimposes itself, or what he got, you call him a man of integrity, an excellent man. There's no such man who is 100% excellent. There's no such man. There's no such man who is 100% man of integrity. It's just that when you meet him, most of the time, 70% of the 30% of the time is a man of integrity. So that's another mistake parents make. If you are dealing with children, you too, you were young. You too, you played pranks. You too, you lied. You too, you took meat in the soup pocket. You too, you did all of. You too, you played trancy. You know that. So you now come now because you are now an adult. You forgot how you grew up. You forgot the mistakes that you make, and despite all the mistakes, you have been able to make a bit out of your life. So you know they gone. You take it easy with the child.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taiwo Akinlami. Now, speaking of excellence, someone is asking, what's the best way to help a boy who keeps having bad grades? I believe that this is like an issue that a lot of parents have with their children. Could you please tell us the best way to help a boy who keeps having bad grades?
Bad grades?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think that when you say a child is having a bad grade, the truth of the matter is that now there's research that was carried out in the 60s that when children are born, 98% of them are geniuses. As they grow up, they begin to lose that geniusness in them because of the handlers. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable. Sweetness of word increases persuasiveness. When a child is not doing well, don't look at the child, look at the coach. When a team is not doing well, they don't sack. Now, in sport, they don't sack players. Now, they first sack coach, because the behavior of the coach, of the player, is tied to the strategy of the coach. No matter how much you are good as a player, as a sportsman, all those all of them, they have coaches, personal managers that they have hired. Tiger Woods, that a caddy, people that they instruct them. Are you getting what I'm saying? So when a child is not doing well, the way we think in Africa is that we focus on the child. And there's a man who said, I've forgotten his name now, if children are not learning the way you are teaching, then change the way you are teaching. Because so if a child is not doing well, we first want to sit down. What is the child's interest? Why is the child appearing not to be doing well? We need to investigate it. When we investigate it, we also need to know that the world is changing, skill set is changing. So all this good in math, good in English is a distraction to the real thing. Because today the world is looking at soft skill. The world is looking at interpersonal skill. The world is looking at what they call soft skill against hard skill, which is technical skill. Harvard has now told us that 80% of Fortune 500 CEOs, people make a difference in the world. They are men of great civility and deportment. leveraging on their soft skill. Machine is taking over. That's what Jack Ma said in the year 2031, 80%, 80 million jobs, 800 million jobs will be lost to machine. So we must be training children for what machine cannot do. But what do parents do? When your child is not good in math, you get a lesson teacher, right? You try to get him on the, but when your child does not greet, your child cannot have cannot have conversation with the friend, cannot look at the friend and say, sorry, I'm not going to take that. Your child does not have grit. Your child is not assertive. You shout through it. Don't allow it. Collect or something from him. Don't let him take your toy. But you forget that you don't do that with math. In math, you teach the child, you help the child. So also, we need to focus on the personal dignity of the child. So if a child is not doing well, approach the teacher, interview the child, talk to the child, depending on the age of the child. Sometimes also we fret. My sister, had a daughter. When the daughter was 5 years old, the daughter was not talking much. The daughter was, appeared to be lagging behind. And my wife always told her, take it easy with this child. The child must know 1 to 100. The child must, at the end of the day, she realized she was putting pressure on that girl and she calmed down. That girl graduated in nursery school on top of her class. That girl is a high flyer today. They live in the United States of America. The mother has gone to eat dinner with principal, with mayor. How many times on the account of this girl, Winifred? And that was the child that the mother was worried that the child was not doing well. Sometimes we need to calm down. Don't use your expectation to judge the expectation don't use your own expectation of what you want to put pressure on the child. The child might just be doing well. The child might just be having a bad time. When you sit down with the child, you talk to the child, you can see that we can find a way forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Taiwo Akinlami. Mr. Ahmed, Adetola-Kazeem, this question is for you. Now, you spoke about bullying. How can we help a boy overcome bullying? I know that most of your presentation was geared towards how not to be a bully, as opposed to, how to handle a bully. So in a situation whereby a boy is constantly being bullied in school, do we encourage our boys to hit back? Do we encourage them to stand up for themselves? I mean, how can we help boys navigate through bullying? Okay, sorry.
Hello, okay, thank you. Well, I think I actually spoke about the two, and it's a two-way thing. So I touched on those who have been bullied. That was why I spoke about Muhammad Ali and how he was able to overcome his bullying, how your children need friends around them, those who can speak for them. So I think it's not a straitjacket thing. Most of what we need to do, I've mentioned during the presentation. But if your boy is having bullying, you also need to look at his personality. So you also need to his self-esteem. There's a need to bring it up. Why you need to find out why is he being the attraction of bullies? And if it has to do with just one person, maybe a singular person taking on your child, then you need to take it at another level. Probably speak with the parents in the best of forms. You understand? Engage them. You understand that I came to my notice that my boy reported this and that. How can we both help these children? Put it in that form, not in a combative form, and see how the parents of the child can also speak to their child and let the school get involved. This is one way out of it. So the other way out of it is I've mentioned the issue of esteem, the self-esteem of your child. If your child have a form of deformity, that could also be an attraction. So you also need to carry the school along and find ways around how to assist the child. So you need to bring the child up to speed. And also, it's also very important in this world we live in. We also need like from my biography, you'd have seen that I trained Taekwondo too, and you see that sometimes it builds the esteem of the child, even without even retaliating. He doesn't even need to fight, but he knows that he has this arsenal within him that would assist his confidence. You understand? So register your child in the martial arts school. That could just be the bully might want to blow him and he just blocks, even without even retaliating. Do you understand? It is actually is a necessary skill at this point in time. That might just be the saving grace for your child. You don't encourage him to fight, but you encourage him to defend himself if the need be. Do you understand? So because you won't always be there all the time. What if they have to go out and you're not there and some people want to attack them? The child should be able to have a first line of defense. At least defend and run away. Not necessarily engage, at least defend and get out of trouble. So these are some of the things that we need to do. So we might need to get in those who are involved at that level to assist the child and also build the child's self-esteem and also ensure that the child is strong enough to protect himself when the need arises.
Right, I absolutely agree. Our last question is, so someone is asking, what is the next course of action after a boy drops out of school? Mr. Taiwo, Akinlami, please do not go yet. This question, would like you to address this question as well, but we can just start with Mr. Ahmed. Now, Mr. Ahmed, I know that you deal with a lot of boys who, dropped out of school, who are into crime and pretty much all of that. Now, for a parent, for an average parent, what advice do you have for parents that their 18-year-old is just coming and saying, I do not want to further my education, and that's it. Nothing. What's the next course of action when a boy says he doesn't want to go to school?
I think that there are different things that could be involved. It's possible that the boy has started getting involved in drugs, because those things don't just come naturally. You understand? The circle. So you need to see how you can assist him with the circle of friends. Who are those he moves with? Who are those? So if there's a need for you to engage the child, probably move him from that particular environment where he's getting that kind of influence, that might be needed. And also boys need mentors, just like girls too. But since we are talking about boys now, people need mentors. I have a friend who dropped out of school. He dropped out of secondary school. He failed WAEC severally, maybe like 6, 7, 8 times, many times. You understand? But he had a mentor. So at some point, he started tying gele. At some point, he was working in a dry cleaning outfit. And the owner of that outfit encouraged him a lot. And he saw a lot of advancement just working there. And the guy encouraged him. He later got admitted into the university with the assistance of a mentor, somebody who could guide. He passed out he finished with a first class from LASU. You understand? And he He finished with a very good grade, a first class also from Unilag and in his master's. And just last week, he graduated from Kansas State University. He did the doctorate. If I mention some of you my name, that his name is Kachi Ekwerike. So he runs postpartum support network. You understand? So what changed the course of his life was just what? A mentor.
Mentor.
You understand? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. But what if in a situation whereby the boy is saying, I do not, even in the presence of a mentor, the boy is saying, Mom, Dad, school is not for me. I do not want to go to school.
So you won't stop. Do you understand? You won't stop. So because I am a spiritual person, so I would say prayers. Do you understand? So you keep assisting with prayers. And beyond prayers, there are therapists. Mr. Akinlami is a professional in this field. I believe we'll have more perspective.
I've been trying to unmute him. I don't know where Mr. Akinlami went. I've been trying to unmute him. But I'll just like to ask for that. Bola Daniels, please get on the phone with Mr. Taiwo Akinlami as soon as you can. We round up. But I would just like to ask.
So also another way also would also be to engage counselors. There are professionals in this field, you understand, who are counselors who can actually. But before you can't just give a straight jacket answers to this. You need to properly be able to assess what the child is going through and what are the reasons why he's saying he's not going to school. He doesn't even have to go to school. So you need to put him in a vocational school. So probably after learning some vocation, he will get back to school on his own. So I think it's not the best strategy to say because you have graduated with so, then the child has to go through that route. Can you just divert him, a sign of diversion, maybe through a vacation first, then after vacation? I have a cousin. He didn't have the opportunity of going to school. You understand? And on his own, he learned plumbing. On his own, he got a teacher. After doing his freedom, what they will call freedom in plumbing school, he got a teacher on his own, and he studied building in Yabatek. Now he's a big builder. He didn't have to. So it's not everybody that will go through the same route you have gone. Some people are footballers today, they are doing well. Some people are into some other, they are doing well. Absolutely. So just, if you value education, just have a discussion with the child and agree. After studying, just please ensure that you repackage this by attending a formal institution. So the guy, it will have been a win-win thing. I think that's another way. So we need to really assess the reasons for the child insisting on not going to school before we look for the best solutions.
Absolutely. That was what I was going to touch on, that if the child says that I want to do music, or I want to be a carpenter, or I want to be a hairdresser, I think that we should learn to encourage our children. Mr. Akinlami just said that the world is evolving. The world is becoming, a global stage where soft skill is of high demand. So we should really encourage our children to pretty much just pursue what they really want to do. So finally, this is like the last question we're gonna take. Now, someone is asking that what is the best way to for a boy who's addicted to drugs, how can you help a boy? This question is directed towards you specifically, because I know that you deal with juveniles and a lot of boys who get involved in crime and drugs and all of that. So now, what's the next course of action if a boy is addicted to drugs? How can you help a boy out of drug
Okay.
addiction?
Yeah, there are several ways of doing that, but I'll just mention some of the ways. So, first and foremost, most people go into drugs because of the influence of peer influence and also parental neglect. So first and foremost is to block the areas of supply. So what are you doing wrong as a parent? You also need to look introspectively. Do you understand? Do you leave home at 4 o'clock and return at 10 o'clock? Of course, you don't expect those children to be well brought up. You understand? You if you find children who behave, who under that kind of parenting, then you know that's actually the mistake. So you need to have time for your children. You understand? So because some of these children are not very neck deep. Well, if they see guidance, most likely they are likely to withdraw. Do you understand? So you need to pay attention to them, personally have time for them, and also their circle. I'll keep mentioning the issue of circle. Those are the immediate things. Those are the remedies for those that have not gone too deep. And if they have gone too deep, then you are talking about therapy. So the therapy are different. So there are organizations now that actually provide therapy for what's called for drug addicts. So you can try to employ that. Also, some of the juvenile centers, those are some of the things they do. But if you put your child in a juvenile center, there's a need for you to even pay more attention there. You understand? Some of the children actually go into these centers and they get reformed, and some go there and they get deformed, even the more. So you need to really, yes, you need to, yes, there's a need to weigh this. So you can, they are working, so you can engage the center. For instance, go to Oregon, for instance. So when you get to Oregon, you engage the principal. There is a way with which you can, it's not just all of them that goes through the courts on maybe through a crime or through, some go there by being those who need parental care, those who need to be guided, those who need some form of reform. So by getting there, they have therapy sessions for some of these kids. So that is a way out. If you don't have, because that is cheaper, you don't need to pay. You understand? It's government sponsored. So you just need that. You also need to support the government efforts by being present, by visiting the child, by also including your own what's it called, your own input whilst the government tries to help. And beyond that, I think what we need most is just ensuring that if what was the cost for their getting into it. So ensure that that particular what's it called, that particular avenue does not arise any longer. And sometimes it could also be changing the environment. Maybe you have a family member, or you need to even change the environment, even yourself as a family. So if you're living in an area that is prone, because the area you raise your child matters. So if you, for instance, if you raise a child in Bagada, for instance, and you can sleep with your two eyes closed, it will be the same if you are raising a child in Adekunle or Mushin or some other areas where you have a lot of, so there might be a need for you to take that big decision of moving your area. So once the child does not have, that ease of getting these things or getting those who encourage him to this, it could be a way of bringing that. So these are some of the things that we could do, but it has to do, a lot of this has to do with parenting.
All right, thank you so much. We have to go now. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. Mr. Taiwo, Akinlami has another webinar, so he will not be able to come back to buttress on the points that Mr. Ahmed Adetola just touched on. But I'm sure he did justice. I'm convinced that he did justice to all the questions. Thank you so much, Mr. Adetola. Thank you so much. It has been a very educative session. Adeyemi, could you please post the registration link so that we can have everybody's email address? We would like to get a feedback on how the program went from everybody. So please, if you haven't registered, that means we do not have your record. We do not have your email address. and we'd like to get a feedback from you. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. Thank you so much. I hope we all have an amazing evening. Thank you and goodbye for now.